Hey, and welcome into the Bork Report. This is Bork News Network, and I am your host, as always, Bork. Very excited to be here on this Saturday evening. It's a little later in the day than I'd normally start recording. It's a little past 8 p.m., and for the record, it is the third time I've tried recording today, so hopefully we can get through this without my file corrupting. We've had 2 corruptions so far. I think I found the issue, think I fixed it, but if not, we might not get a video till tomorrow. Gotta go into some settings and see how that's going. But still excited to be here for the third time trying to talk about this. I've got a fun run of show for you today. Talking a little bit more Pokemon, just like I did last week. And with Pokemon Day coming up in just about 2 weeks, about 12 days, I think. Just wanted to discuss, what I'm excited about, what I think we're going to see on Pokemon Day, as well as just kind of give you a state of the union as far as where I feel Pokemon currently is with their games, with their, mostly with the games is kind of where I'll focus. But yeah, just kind of give you a little bit of a state of the union address as far as how I feel that's going. And then going to round it out with a tier list of the Pokemon regions. So really excited to do that one for you. I might break this up into multiple recordings. So if you see anything cut, that's because I'm trying not to have my file corrupt. So if I get through a segment, I might do a quick pause and come back with another separate video footage. That way we don't lose any of the content this time, because the last couple times I was about 20 to 30 minutes into my recording when it failed. So we are hoping we don't get to that point this time. So with that being said, I will jump into some housekeeping before I get into my first segment. And I want to say, for those of you that watched my video last week, thank you. I did end up finding my Heracross. It was after about 200 to 250 trees. I didn't really count them, but just based on how many times I went through the region and how many trees I checked each time, that's my assumption as far as what the final total was about 200 to 250 trees just to even see a dang Heracross. So appreciate anyone again that watched last week, and if you were curious, I did end up finding it, and now I'm just a couple Pokemon away from completing the living dex. I need Purugly and Glameow, which are version exclusives, and Palkia, which is obviously a version exclusive as well. I've got a friend that plans to trade me those this weekend, so hopefully we'll get that and then get my shiny Manaphy for my troubles, because I had to play a lot of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. And before I jump into anything else on the Pokemon State of the Union, God, Spiritomb, can we talk about that for a second? That is a nightmare to catch in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, because the NPCs are not fun to talk to in the Grand Underground, and running around in the Grand Underground for hours on end is just a fool's errand. So for those that may not know or may not have tried to catch Spiritomb in that game, you've got to put the odd keystone into the tower on the route next to Hearthome City, and then you've got to go to the Grand Underground and talk to 32 different NPCs. You can't just leave and come back and talk to the same one 32 times like you could in the old games. Nope, you've got to talk to 32 separate people down there, which is a crazy, crazy ask considering there's only 35 total NPCs. And while you can kind of play your odds a little bit by going to different routes a couple times back to back, it took me probably 3 or 4 hours to finally find 32 different NPCs. With that being said, I do know you can get Spiritomb as early as 2 gyms. So if you have 2 gym badges, you could get Spiritomb, but definitely not an easy thing to do by any means. So yeah, definitely not a high recommend, but it is kind of a fun time getting Spiritomb, and now I'm only a couple Pokemon away from getting my Manaphy. So I just wanted to complain a little bit about the Spiritomb, because I think that might have been worse than the Heracross, because the Heracross is very straightforward with what you've got to do. It's just a waiting game. Spiritomb, how the hell are you supposed to find that out if you don't look it up? It is kind of how I'm feeling. So anyhow, I'll jump into the main point of conversation. I'm going to do a quick little cut here and come back with a second segment just so I can have 2 separate video playing here. So you'll see a little cut, and then I'll come back with segment number 1. All right, back at it here. So again, to start things off with the first segment here, Just really want to jump into the state of Pokemon games as it currently stands. I don't touch the TCG. I don't really touch the kind of merchandise or anything like that as far as other ways to interact with Pokemon Go, but I play the games. So I just want to kind of give you guys some thoughts on, the games upcoming, maybe the next generation that's unannounced currently, and then what I think Pokemon needs to do with their games on the Switch 2, whichever system, in order to maximize their profits. I'm trying to help you, Pokemon Company, as well as maximize our profits as far as the value we're getting from Pokemon. So first things first is the next game coming out, already announced. We don't know a date for it, but we've had little to no info spilled since last Pokemon Day, is Legend ZA. It's a follow-up in the Pokemon Legends series, as we got Pokemon Legends Arceus back in 2021 or 22. I can't remember. I think it was 2021. And with that being said, Pokemon Legends Arceus, if you watched my tier list video last week, if not, click it, is one of my favorite games in the entire series. It's the most fun I've had with Pokemon probably since, if I had to go back in generations, probably since maybe Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire were pretty fun at the time. I've had fun playing every Pokemon game, but like Legends Arceus made me feel like a kid again in a way. It kind of brought back that nostalgia for catching Pokemon, exploring this unexplored area. The open zone structure really was great. So to see the Pokemon Company really jumping into that for the next game in the series is really cool to see, and I'm really excited to see what they do with it. And to that point, if there's a separate team working on Legends ZA than there is on Gen 10 or the next mainline Pokemon game, they've had 3 years to work on it, which I think is a pretty good amount of time. In today's standards, maybe not so much, but since this is probably going to release as a Switch 1 game and not a Switch 2 game, I would say that 3 years is a pretty good amount of time when you guys already have the assets. Hey, there's my cat. So yeah, I'm really excited about it. The concept from what we saw last year in that very minimal teaser was that it looked like we're developing Lumio City in helping build that out. I've heard, I can't remember where I read this, but I heard that the entire game takes place inside Lumio City, so I'm expecting a really large city here, and maybe it's different zones or something along those lines. But that also excites me in a pretty high manner, because I think one of the coolest things about Gen 6 and X and Y was Lumio City and how big it felt on that game, and they're only going to be able to expand it in this game. So I'm really excited to see what they do with that. A little bit concerning that it might only take place inside of Lumio City at the same time, because, while that's a cool concept, I'm very much concerned about kind of the differentiation of areas, and I'm hoping everything doesn't feel too samey, like everything looks the same. And I'm hoping that there's some variety in kind of what that looks like. I feel like it could be cool if you're developing the city. Maybe you're trying to expand the city outward into these areas that have been unexplored. And once you kind of conquer them, then the city kind of builds around them, and there's kind of themed areas. So maybe you go out the East Gate and it's a desert, and you catch and tame this Pokemon that wouldn't allow you to expand further. And once you do that, you kind of work with the Pokemon and kind of build up a new city inside of that area. It kind of seems like a real estate tycoon type situation, which I don't know if I mess with that too much, but the concept in my head as far as how it can only take place in Lumio City, it doesn't really register in my brain. So we'll have to see a little bit more about that. But if they keep the same catching mechanics, as well as add some cool side quests and some story beats for characters that are really interesting, then I think we've got a really cool game on our hands, and I'm really excited to see what they've got to present to us here on the 27th on Pokemon Day. So really excited about that. I think it's going to be a really cool game. Really hoping that it doesn't disappoint and that we can get this pretty quickly after the Pokemon Day. Again, I think it's going to be a Switch 1 game. Maybe it'll be upraised for Switch 2. Maybe they'll do a separate Switch 2 version. I just doubt that. But I think we'll get a release date and kind of know what the state of that is going to look like as we go forward. Outside of that, the state of the union here, as far as what I'm calling it for Pokemon games, is Scarlet and Violet are obviously the latest games in the series, and I think I speak for every Pokemon fan when I say this. Slow down, Game Freak. We do not need a game every year. We do not need to really push this money machine forward. I know that people buy your games regardless, but if I had some sort of hypnotist device, I would be swinging it here telling you to slow down and release these games when they are ready to go, because Scarlet and Violet were kind of a disgrace to Pokemon as kind of a product, because those games were so poorly optimized. They ran like crap on the Switch, and it sucks that those games were as fun as they were. Part of me wants there to be just a absolute bomb of a Pokemon game. Part of me is like, I don't ever want to see a bomb of a Pokemon game because I want to have fun playing them. And at the end of the day, Scarlet and Violet were very fun games, but to think that the Pokemon company saw that product, played it, tested it, did all the stuff they do ahead of the release, and still thought, yeah, this is the best we can do. This is going to be good. It's a bit concerning to me. And I know it's all about profits. I know it's all about getting these games out so people buy them. And Scarlet and Violet just became the second highest selling Pokemon games of all time, behind Red and Blue, and they just passed Sword and Shield. So the Switch is having no problem selling Pokemon games. And that's the problem, is that we need there to be some sort of revolution as far as like we demand a higher quality or we won't buy your games. That's never going to happen. So I feel like we're in this perpetual state of just getting mediocre Pokemon games, but there's gotta be a tipping point. There's gotta be a bubble. I unfortunately don't know how bad it could get before I wouldn't buy them. But at the end of the day, that's kind of where we're at with Pokemon. And that's kind of where we're at with a lot of media, is that a lot of these companies feel like they can just push out slop and that we'll buy it no matter what. But what I'm seeing is with Marvel and movies, people have finally hit their tipping point as far as, they used to be the hottest thing. Everyone would go to the Marvel movies. Every single Marvel movie would sell, $1 billion in tickets. And then over the years, I feel like they just stopped running good movies out there. And maybe you'll get a few good movies here and there, but the quality has dipped considerably. And I also feel like the zeitgeist of Marvel has fallen off to the point where people aren't begging for new Marvel movies anymore. It's just kind of like I might see it if it's good, if it gets good reviews. And to be frank, they just have not been getting good reviews. So maybe Pokemon will see a similar renaissance in the next 5 to 10 years. It's hard to see that happening just based on how well those games sell, as well as how well the cards sell, the merch sells, everything. Pokemon really seems like they could do no wrong, which is a problem. So and I'm part of that problem. I'll buy every Pokemon game and play them because I think they're fun. And that's kind of where I come from, the mindset of it'd be nice to buy a game, say, hey, this is not fun, return the game, or, it hurts their sales because other people aren't buying it as much. And Pokemon, decides to make an official shift and go towards, waiting longer between games, because I think that's what we need. I still think there's a place for side content and in Legends games and things like that to break up the generational gaps. But the jump from Gen 8 to Gen 9, people complained all the time about Gen 8. I would kill for Scarlet and Violet to look as nice as Sword and Shield did, because Sword and Shield looks really crisp. I think that the tree textures, whatever, who cares? It's a tree. The Pokemon look good. The game runs flawlessly. The menus work really well. So say what you will about Sword and Shield, but if Scarlet and Violet ran and looked the same as those, they would be far better Pokemon games. So that might be controversial. I don't think it is. Please tell me if I'm wrong, but that just does not feel like a controversial take to me. So with that being said, I'm going to jump into a separate cut here just to get this, and then I will be back to talk about my last point on the games, and then I'll jump into my regions tier list. So see you in 1 second. All right, so the last point I wanted to make on the Pokemon games is that as someone that just recently acquired a Game Boy Advance SP, here it is, and with that I got Fire Red version. It's in the slot here. We got a nice copy of Fire Red version. As someone that is yearning to feel like a kid again and to have some nostalgia, one of the biggest nostalgia pieces of my childhood was playing Pokemon games. And guess what? I got this for free off of a family member that doesn't use it anymore. That is amazing. I'm super fucking blessed. But people that want to buy old Pokemon games, or maybe they've never played a game and they want to get into the series with an older version, they're going to be shelling out $100+ to get an old Pokemon game. And that is just, in my opinion, ridiculous and unacceptable. And on top of that, these Pokemon that you catch in this game do not have any compatibility with the newer series, and being able to catch Pokemon in there. To be able to transfer this Pokemon from this game up to the Generation 9 games, I would have to literally run a decathlon, a marathon, jump through 30,000 hoops, and do a backflip, and then do a gainer. And finally, I'd be able to get my Pokemon from Fire Red into the Generation 9 games on the Switch. So it's not easy to do. It's nearly impossible for the average person to do without spending at least $300 or $400, I think, because you're gonna have to buy. God, let's go through this. You need to get a Nintendo DS. One of the Nintendo DS games that allows you to transfer from the Game Boy Advance. I think it's pretty much just Diamond and Pearl, maybe Platinum. I could be wrong. You need to then connect your Game Boy game into the bottom slot of the DS Lite, and a DS game into the top slot. Get far enough in that game to do it. Make the transfer. From there, on the DS, you need to get that game into Black 2 and White 2, which means you've got to jump it through generations again. So you've got to get it to Heart Gold, Soul Silver. There's probably some way to get it from Heart Gold, Soul Silver to Black or White. I don't know. It's a crazy process, but once you get into Black 2 and White 2, you got to get into Pokemon Bank, which requires a Nintendo 3DS. So to do this, you not only need a DS, you need a 3DS, because you need Pokemon Bank, and you transfer it from Pokemon Bank into your Pokemon Home. So crazy process, crazy amount of money spent. Every single Pokemon fan wants to play the old games. They would never say no to that. If you put them out on the Nintendo Switch as a virtual console game, or in the Nintendo Switch Online package, maybe for an additional fee, people are going to pay it in droves, especially if they can transfer those Pokemon into Pokemon Home and have those Pokemon to play with in the newest generations. Pokemon, listen to me. I know you don't. You're never going to see this. Listen to me when I say this. Put them on the damn Switch. Put them on the Switch too. Something. We need an announcement at Pokemon Day this year that says these games are going to be coming into the newest systems, aka the Switch and Switch 2 through Nintendo Switch Online, and that people will be able to transfer from those games into Pokemon Home. That way they can feel the nostalgia of the old games, play it on their Switch, on the go, wherever they want to. And after they're done doing that, they'll be able to take those Pokemon and put them into the most recent games and play with their buddies that they've longed to do for a long time, and they just don't have all the stupid gizmos, doohickeys, and contraptions to do so. So hear me when I say this. That is more important than anything you're doing right now. Legends EA, Scarlet and Violet, optimizing those. Who gives a damn? Gen 10, not even as important as this. We need the old games on the Switch, Switch 2. We need them now. That's way more important. So, Pokemon, listen well and take my advice. That is the end of that rant. I am sorry to get heated, but I just care a lot about Pokemon games, and I really want to feel the nostalgia. Turning this thing on, I've played this for about 3 hours today, and hearing that startup sound, let me give you guys a little taste of this. Yeah, hearing that is music to my damn ears every time. And being able to just sit on my couch, play Pokemon for 3 hours, and just tune out the world was probably one of the most I felt like a kid in a long time. It's been a long year, long week, long month, whatever it is. That makes me feel like a kid again. And I think everyone should have the opportunity to do that. And that's why I feel so passionately about these games getting to the Switch, is because people freaking need it. It's possible to do. It's easy as hell to do. Just do it, Nintendo. Do it, Pokemon. Someone make the call. Whew. So to summarize my points there, I think, the games are fine. Scarlet and Violet ran like shit, but they're fun to play. Keep that energy, keep the fun mechanics in the games. Take more time to build that out and optimize them. And then the Legends series, let them keep cooking, because Legends Arceus is, again, a top 5, maybe top 3 game of all time. And then Legends ZA, obviously coming out this year, we hope has the same magic that Legends Arceus did. There's going to be Mega Evolutions. There's going to be, hopefully a lot of the same mechanics from Legends Arceus. And hopefully similar graphics. The watercolor style was really cool. I feel like they're going to go with a more industrial art style because it's supposed to be set in present day or the future. I could be completely wrong saying that, but keep going with those. And then just let Gen 10 cook in the oven a little bit more. Release it fully on the Switch too. And give the people what they want. Is just a solid Pokemon game that runs smoothly and plays well. And is as fun as Scarlet and Violet was, has the highs of Scarlet and Violet's fun with the open world aspects if you want to. Maybe not. Maybe we dial it back and do a more traditional. That's what we need. So that's my State of the Union on games. We need the old games on the Switch is my most important talking point from all of this. If you take anything away, take that away and agree with me. And then I guess one other thing before I jump into the regions tier list here is that I think that the 3D art style in Pokemon is not something we need. I think Legends does it really well as far as what those look like and kind of how those present themselves, but I have not been impressed with the 3D Switch game compared to the sprites of the old games in a long time. I think it was really cool seeing Pokemon in 3D for the first time. They kind of reiterated and made some things better. The vistas and the things they're able to do are incredible. But if you're going to start remaking games, I want to see something different where it's not just a 3D style and or the chibi style from BDSP. We don't need Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl graphics ever again. Give us something like an HD 2D graphics like the Dragon Quest games are doing with those remasters, like a Bravely Default. Give us something like that where it kind of wows us and shows us why Pokemon's awesome again as far as what you can do with the arts, the sprites. I feel like all of the Pokemon will look drastically different or feel drastically different in a style like that. And I think that that's always good to present your Pokemon in another way. Hopefully we can see something like that happen. I don't know. That's the last point I'll make on the Pokemon, presentation side of things and kind of my State of the Union. I'll come back here in a second and we'll do a tier list ranking of the Pokemon regions, and you guys can say hello to my cat's tail there. The other day with the Pokemon games list, this will be a little bit shorter than that, as mentioned. We've got 9 regions to rank in the Pokemon region. I'm not going to be doing any side games or things like that. I'm going to be doing main series games and the regions that accompany them. Basically, how I'm going to rank these is I'll do a tier list here. I guess I'll go S through D tier. That seems fine to me. Actually, I don't feel like I need to do that. I'll just do it in 3 tiers. Let me get this rolling here. I'm going to delete this. I'll go top 3, middle 3, and we'll go bottom 3. So basically, I'll put 3 in each tier here, and I'll place them in order within the tiers, left to right, so we get a definitive ranking here. But as we start, Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, Sinnoh, Unova, Kalos, Alola, Galar, Paldea, those are the 9 regions we're ranking, 1 for each generation of games. And to start things off, I will go in order, and I might change as I go through this. I might disagree with something I say now and move it later, but just pure thinking off the top of the head, I will put Kanto to start things off in the middle 3. I think it's a really good region. And again, how I'll rank these is based on the aesthetics of the region as well as the layout and design of the region and how smart I think that is. And with Kanto, I think that one thing that Kanto does really well is gives the player some freedom as far as where they go in having that forking path in not Celadon, Sabrina's gym. Why can't I think of the city? But giving that like four forking path there and allowing the player to kind of go in and out of the region as they please, in kind of a different order every time is really cool. The fact that I can battle certain gyms before others, and then on a second playthrough I can change the order of the gyms. I feel like Kanto felt like an open world at the time, which is really cool and kind of what I think everyone wants the region to look like in any Pokemon game, is to give the player agency as far as where they go, what order they do the things in, and how they go about it. So initial off the dome, I'm going to go with the middle three. The things that I think hurt Kanto the most is I don't think it's aesthetically the most beautiful region by any means. I think that there's a lot of cool variety as far as caves and things like that go, but I think the best looking Kanto game is Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. That game looks gorgeous, and nothing in that game wows me as far as like the aesthetics go. So that's why it initially is going to be a middle three for me, but it very well could move up or down depending on how I feel here in a minute. So Johto is one of my favorite regions to play. Heart Gold, Soul Silver are probably the best showings of Johto that we'll get maybe ever, just based on the art style and kind of how they presented it. I always will appreciate a Johto remake if they do decide to do one of those. If it's a Let's Go style or whatever it may be, that'll always be appreciated. With that being said, my initial thought here is that Johto is a top 3 region. It's not going to be my number 1, but it is a top 3. I think that the Johto games have a similar pathing system to where it allows the player some agency as far as where they go. Once you get to Morty and Ikritik and get Surf, you're kind of able to go in any of 2 or 3 directions there. You can go fight Jasmine. If you heal the Ampharos in the Lighthouse, you can go fight Chuck right away. He's the true 5th gym leader as far as what the order says. You can even fight Price as far as I know. I think you can go up to Lake of Rage, catch the Gyarados, and then do the Team Rocket stuff that then unlocks Price's gym. So I think you can do any of those 3 gyms in any order. So that's cool. But really what kills it with the Johto region is the aesthetics. I think that the music in each town sets the aesthetic really well as well. So I think Azalea Town is one that stands out, where it's just this cozy little tucked away town in the middle of a forest and a cave right in between there. It's got a well. There's some cozy vibes of the people living here in Azalea Town. The real standout to me is Ikritik and Cyanwood. I think the music in both of those is amazing. And then Ikritik just feels like this historical journey. You see the Tin Tower and the Burn Tower, and you just know that there's history that's happened in this town. The lore that you get from the townspeople is amazing. In Heart Gold and Soul Silver, it's this beautiful fall golden color. And just an incredible city. Outside of that, you have some really cool landmarks as far as Mount Silver, the Ice Path, the Dragon's Den, the ocean between Cyanwood and Olivine City is really cool. So a lot of really great things to say about the Johto region. It's going to be my top 3. It's not going to be my number 1, I don't think. Maybe it will. We'll see by the time I get to the end. Actually, no, it won't, because if we're going into the next region, Hoenn is the region. Hoenn is that region when you're talking about Pokemon games. It is, I think, by and far away the most gorgeous region in the entire game. What maybe, how it's set up might hurt it a little bit. I don't think it's the most free region. I feel like it sets you on a very specific path. But the variety in this region, as far as, there's a volcanic region where there's ash falling from the sky and you walk through all of it. And then there's this vast ocean. And then there's, a city that's literally in the trees with 4 Tree City, and everyone lives in tree houses. There's a Olivine City, or not Olivine City. I'm going through too many city names to the point where I can't even remember cities. But Lily Cove. Lily Cove City is really cool, really beautiful. I love the shoreline there. And I think Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire did a phenomenal job of showing these regions at their best. Being able to fly around on your Latios or Latios is a trip in those games, and it looks amazing. So anything I just said about Johto or Kanto, like Hoenn just does them so much better at the expense of it kind of fits you on a more narrative path. But I like how it kind of circles around on itself. Once you get to a certain point, you kind of get circled back to the original cities if you want. And I think all of the games do a pretty good job of that. Johto with after you beat Whitney and get the squirt bottle, you can get right back to Violet City. And then Kanto, obviously, once you beat Lieutenant Surge and get cut, you can go up back towards the beginning cities again. So they all loop back pretty well. The Sinnoh region, I'm thinking Sinnoh is a cool region. As someone that just played BDSP, like I can't deny that they're really cool cities. There's really cool aesthetics in this region. I think Mount Coronet as a concept is really cool, like this giant mountain splitting the region in half. And at the top of this mountain is where the entire freaking Pokemon universe started. Just for that, I feel like it's going to go at the back of the middle three for me. Maybe that'll change. I don't know. I've got to think about it a little bit more. But just a really awesome region overall. I think there's a lot of variety as far as the towns and the snow and things along those lines. As someone that just played BDSP, I talked about it a ton last week. But I think that the games themselves don't do this journey justice because they make you see too much of the region too early. So what I mean by that is between the second and third gym, you literally see everything. You go almost to every city besides like a couple, and it takes you through pretty much every route you'll see, and then it just feels like you're backtracking a lot. So the games do them a little dirty as far as that goes, but I think overall they're really, really cool games. And the region is really cool. A lot of cool aesthetics. Unova, I don't recall the Unova region itself is really awesome. And it's probably just the fact that these games are some of the ones I played the least, but for me initially, I'm thinking it's going to go middle three, and I think it's going to go right above Sinnoh. I think that the city is really awesome in this game. I think that the way that the region kind of loops on itself is really cool. And one thing that Unova gets a plus on for me is that with Black and then Black 2 or White 2, you kind of change path as far as, where you start out with and kind of the order that you go in and kind of how you explore the region. And the fact that these games had the seasons, and if you're in a certain season, it looks different. If you're in in this cave during the winter, you can't access this location. But if you come in the summer, then, the snow's melted and you can get to this location. Like things like that are really cool to me. And just the fact that every route has different variations based on the season you're in, that's a huge win. And you'll probably notice that there's nostalgia for some of these regions based on how much I've played them. So if I've played a game more, I probably have more nostalgia for it. Johto is the region I've been in the most. So, call me biased. I don't care. Kalos. Kalos is probably going to be top of the bottom three for me. I think that it's a really beautiful region. I think that I'm really excited to see what Legends ZA does with the Kalos region, or if it truly is just going to be Lumio City. I'm curious to see how it's going to handle that. But the jump to 3D was a big jump. I think that there's some places in this game that just don't really make sense to me as a whole. As far as like the routes are short, or they're not that interesting, or you see way too much and battle way too many people on these routes. But Lumio City is one of the coolest locations in all of Pokemon. The cliff sides are really, really beautiful. There's a really cool snowy city. And just the fact that I can't even remember any of these city names besides Lumios tells you how forgettable a lot of them probably are. Maybe that's just me. I spent a decent amount of time in Kalos, and Xerneas is my favorite legendary Pokemon. I think Geosenge Town is really cool. But overall, just it's not a top tier region for me by any means or any stretch of the imagination. I think I'm gonna put Alola in bottom three as well. And as I'm going through this, I'm thinking I'm probably gonna change a few things around once I get to Galar and Paldea, because I think I know what I want to do here. Um, but Alola, I'll jump that first. I think that Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon are fun games. I never felt like I was exploring this really cool, different region. I felt like it was a lot of samey stuff going on in Alola, with it being the four islands. I know they're all supposed to have their distinct feel. I don't recall what those towns are called. I don't recall what the islands are called. And maybe that's just because I spent the least amount of time in these games, probably to any other game in the series. But I can't, in good conscience, rate it higher than that. It very well could be last on my list based on how I'm looking at things here. I think it might be. With that being said, I'm going to put Galar. I feel like Galar's got to be middle three, but I feel like it's like top of middle three. I think Galar as a region, no. This is feeling right. This is feeling right. And this is feeling right as well. Okay. I'm going to talk about Galar because what I just did was a big shakeup. I think it feels right, though, because I think Paldea's cooler as a concept than Sinnoh, as far as like the big crater in the middle. Area 0 is really cool. I think a fully realized Paldea version is cooler than Sinnoh. And just the fact that the game is open world, it truly lets you go wherever you want to go. It doesn't hold your hand, and it doesn't lead you on a very specific path like Sinnoh does. That gives it some bonus points for me, but I'm trying to talk about Galar here. And Galar, without the DLC, I've got to say Galar is probably a bottom three region, but if you add in the Isle of Armor and you add in the Crown Tundra, I think those two areas probably jump Galar up into the slot that it's at here. I think, again, as I said earlier in this video, it is a much prettier game than Scarlet and Violet. And I think that the rustic feel of some of the towns in Galar is really cool. I think the cities feel really alive. Something I can't say quite as much about with the Paldea region. The cities feel alive. The DLC areas are incredible. The Isle of Armor is really cool. And kind of the fully realized wild area, with it kind of intertwining with the story as well. I think the wild area in Galar is a really cool concept. And at the time of release, I thought it was awesome. Looking back on it, it's a little samey and a little bit boring. But I think that the beauty of the region is really in the art design of the games. And where it really loses points for me is the fact that, you know, it kind of holds your hand. It really holds your hand as far as where you're going in the game. There is no secret cave to explore. There's no like forking paths at any point. It just kind of points you towards the next thing. It really holds your hand a lot. And that's kind of its biggest boon. But I think it's a really pretty, vista across the entire board. I think Wyndon's a really cool city. So I'll give Galar middle three. And then, like I said, with Paldea, I think it's a really cool region that's not fully realized based on the specs and the hardware that it ran on. So with that being said, I want to put it higher. I really do, but I can't because I just, the freedom is amazing. What I think it's going for as far as what it's supposed to look like and supposed to run like is really cool. If it was on a beefier system and they could do a little bit more with it, then I think that this game could be the best region in all of Pokemon potentially. But I don't know. I just think that the hardware limitations and the performance of the Scarlet and Violet games really brings it down to the point where I can't put it higher than this. And it's probably controversial for me to put Galar and Paldea ahead of Sinnoh, Kalos, Alola. I'm sure most people would probably put Galar and Paldea at the bottom. I think that as far as the vibes and aesthetics, they're there. They have some stuff. I think Paldea is a little boring as far as the vibes, but the aesthetics, if it was looking as it should, the aesthetics should be there. And I know I should be taking the game for what it is and not what I think it should be, but I don't know. Just the freedom that the Paldea region gives is something that I really enjoyed and had a good time with. So it might be a hot take. I'm going to throw it out into the world. I'm going to download this and kind of go from there. But there's my tier list. Oh no, what happened? Okay, it's saved with Paldea. It got rid of Paldea when I did that. So regardless, that's my ranking for the region there. I'm going to jump back to my cam here and kind of close things out on this episode. But what I will say is that you probably will disagree with me on the regions. Maybe not. Maybe you'll understand my point of view and maybe you won't. That's kind of the point of these, is to just throw out my point of view and see if people agree or disagree. But if you think that I fucked up horrendously on one of the rankings or anywhere on the list, please let me know and I'll be happy to comment back and forth and explain my point of view and hear your point of view as well. So outside of that, I'm going to wrap this episode up so I don't lose the recording again. This has been the episode 6 of the Bork Report here on Bork News Network. As always, I'm your host, Bork, and I look forward to seeing you next week, and we'll find a new topic to talk about, but have a great night.